For years, I didn't think I needed to heal at all. I thought I was fine. Being aware and curious and finding the fun and the magic again. Spirituality doesn't have to be just crystals and tarot cards, and you can be spiritual without doing any of the so-called spiritual paraphernalia that's out there. It's as easy as looking inward, so I would love people just to start to be curious.
It all begins by understanding the mind.
I want to be happy now. I don't care about the future. I want to be happy right now.
You are not alone. You are never, ever, ever alone in this.
It's helped my voice grow and given me freedom to be creative on my own.
I'm Christina Barcy. Welcome to Be Bold, Begin, a podcast dedicated to you, the creative, the healer, and the innovator. The topics and conversations we have here are designed to help you discover what might be getting in your way and offer you tools, techniques, and guidance to move through them.
I live in the imposter's body more than I live in my own body. I don't have to feel like I don't deserve this.
This is where creativity and healing intersect.
If you decide to be bold and begin, you have the opportunity to feel humbled and empowered. I totally believe that.
I'm a certified Kaizen Muse creativity coach, a certified Reiki energy healer, and an entrepreneur, artist, and presenter. I will share with you my experiences, my proven tools and techniques that helped me and my clients and loved ones shift and expand in the areas they most desired. This is a gentle and open space where you will hear how others are being bold to encourage you to begin your own journey or expand the one you're on. This is Be Bold Begin. Hi, welcome back. This is Barcy, your host. So something interesting happened these past few months that I'd like to share with you. As I started to accept new guest inquiries for the show, I noticed a trend. The people that were reaching out to me all had something in common. They shared a connection with something more than themselves. And for many of them, their paths shifted as they made this discovery in their own lives and allowed it to guide them towards a higher path, or at least one that was more fulfilling. My guest today also shares this in common with this collection of interesting people, but instead I found her. I was part of a Facebook group of over 10,000 individuals, maybe more, who were all learning how to create digital courses, and it was highly suggested that we find an accountability pod, in which my imposter syndrome and introversion set in, and I thought to myself, how am I going to find the right group that will have this gentle and encouraging energy that I know that I need? But before I could even finish my thought, there was a post from Lindsay Reiling sharing just enough about herself that I immediately felt connected to her, and I knew I had to be in the group she was forming. Thankfully, she responded to me and added me as the fifth member of what I quickly learned was a powerful, highly intuitive, and spiritual group of women. Which, of course, though strangers before this, we all had that in common. This serendipity has become the trend in my life for the past 8 months or so. So, here's a little more about my guest today, Lindsay Reiling. She calls herself Lindsay The Grateful and says her mission is to normalize spirituality. She believes that through connecting with spirit, we can heal our wounds, traumas, losses, and live a healthful life in all aspects. Connecting to spirit connects us to something more, and with that comes a calming inner peace, confidence, and reassurance that we are more than our physical bodies. Lindsay is a spiritual coach and healer, Reiki master, Akashic records reader, master channeler, and mom of 3. So welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you. That was a good intro. I like that.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's funny when you hear about yourself and somebody's telling about you. It's always interesting to just hear that feedback and see how it feels when somebody else is saying, it felt good. It felt real, true, and like, yeah, that's where I am. That's what I do. This is me. So yeah, I like that.
I love that. I do love reading people's bios or information about them or the things that they do, and it's so empowering to hear it, because we're so busy doing the thing usually that not often do we get to pause and go, oh yeah, I did that. I did all of that. And this is where I am. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good reflection.
Yes. Yeah. My first question was actually how you came up with Lindsay The Grateful, which fits in with what we're talking about. So can you share a little bit about, I love it, by the way. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's funny because when I think about when I came up with the name, I think of myself as being in a place where I was very unhealed and was very unaware of the healing I needed to work on. And so at that point in time, I was more aware of gratitude, was becoming more popular. It was talked about a little bit more. And I was actually coming up with a name for my photography company at the time. And I was kind of just doing it on the side with my kids at home. And it was a really good creative outlet for me. And so I thought, well, what do I kind of want to embrace? And a lot of times I had heard, well, you use your name because then you can, no matter how things change, you can always, your name can always just be there. And so I thought about that, and I'm like, well, my last name, it's spelt differently than it's pronounced, and the E's and the I's always mix people up. And so I thought, well, what is important to me? And at that point I started keeping a gratitude journal. So every night I would write down 5 things I was grateful for from the day. And this, I think, was just the starting of me trying to look inward, trying to bolster myself up, trying to make myself feel better, I think, in my skin at that point. And I remember trying to think of powerful women and strong women and what that feels like. Well, my mom and I had gone for a girls' weekend in the mountains with my 2 sisters. And I had really little kids at the time, so they were toddlers at that time. So I was, super mom mode where it was just full on at that point. And on the way up in the car with my 2 sisters and mom, I was like, you know what? I want to get a tattoo. and I'm like,
not what I was expecting you to say.
Right? I'm like, I want to get a tattoo. I never have time to get a tattoo. I could never just the kids are always with me. I can't just take them to a tattoo parlor. I feel guilty taking time away.
I love this so much.
And so we're driving and so my 2 sisters are a little bit more conservative, and I was like, that would be so cool. We should all get tattoos. And I'm like,
and your mom too?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so I'm like, let's all get tattoos. And my one sister was like, well, I promised my daughter that my first tattoo would be with her. And I was like, okay. And then my other sister was like, well, I don't think I should spend that kind of money right now. And then my mom was like, I'll do it. I was like, oh my God. Awesome. And she had never, at that point I had 1 tattoo already, so I kind of knew what to expect, but she had never had a tattoo before. And so I said, I want to keep on this gratitude train. And so we got, for me, on my inner wrist, I have grateful written in my handwriting. So that kind of started it and kept it going, because I said, I always want to, I feel like I sometimes don't realize what a great life I have and all the things around me that I just take for granted. And I have so much more than so much of the world. And I have a family and love, and, there's so much that we can be grateful for. And so I said, I always want a reminder of it. So I put it on my wrist, and my mom got, in my handwriting, in the same sort of style, my mom got strength. Oh. And for her, she's a very, very, very inner and outer strong woman, and very independent, very capable. If something comes up, she's just like, well, I'll try it. I might not know how to do it, but I'll just do it. I'll try. And she has zero fear of failure. It's really kind of amazing, and she'll just tackle any project or anything. So she's really cool that way. So I think at the time she was 63, I think, and it was her first tattoo. So that was really cool that we got that together. So it was kind of in the back of my mind. So then I was like, well, powerful women and grateful and gratitude. And then I was like, well, you kind of hear of like Catherine the Great and things like that. And I was kind of playing on that. And I thought, well, Lindsay the Grateful. I'm like, does that, thinking to myself, does that sound too bold? But I'm like, well, not really, because it's a really beautiful thing to be grateful. So I felt like it was softer in that. So that's what I named my photography company at the time. I'm no longer doing photography, except for family and friends and for fun. But when I started my spiritual business, then I thought, well, this goes perfectly with that, because it encompasses, as I've healed over the years and really worked on myself and my inner strength and what is most important to me and connecting and my spirituality, Lindsay the Grateful goes perfectly with that. So that was a long-winded answer for a title of a company.
No, that's a great story. That's wonderful. That's such a wonderful story. It was unexpected and delightful. Yeah. I loved it. And I loved hearing about your mom. She sounds like such a badass. What a great example to have as a young woman, or any woman, or any person, right? But because you are her daughter, what a great way to grow up and see someone so important in your life doing things without hesitation and trying. Trying is so important. Let me just try. Let's see what happens. Yeah. There's such a beauty in that. And it's a struggle for most of us to be able to, again, give ourselves permission to just try something new or see and be okay if it doesn't work out.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I think that's a big thing for a lot of us, or most of us, throughout our lives. And for me, raising kids too, is that they'll come home and they'll be worried about a test or something that they failed, and they're surprised when I just kind of laugh and I'm like, oh, all right, well, that's funny. You just, the too bad on that one, but what did you learn from it? Did you realize where you went wrong? Did you go over it, and what could you have done differently? Did you study, or maybe you skipped it this time, and then they, they're usually quite upset about it. And then also I try and put it in perspective for them. I said, well, I've failed a lot of tests growing up and in my school. Do you think I still am really upset, and do you think it really affects my life, the test that I failed in grade 6? And they're like, no. I'm like, exactly. So let's just move on to the next one. Try and learn from that one to improve on the next one so that you don't make the same mistakes again. And no biggie. And then it's just, I try to just be done with it. And I think I try to do that in my life. I know I haven't always succeeded about that, but I try and keep it where I'm learning from my kids too, because if I'm teaching them that, where am I holding back, or where am I really kicking myself for a failure that's really not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things?
That just makes me want to exhale. I feel so much relief in the way that you talked about that, and what an amazing way to approach a child's emotional experience, and also, this what we as kids, it's like those are the big markers. It's like the stressors are the tests and doing well in school and making you proud and trying to succeed, right? Like whatever that means to any of us, really. But showing them some that perspective piece is so wonderful, and having a conversation with them like that so they can really make their own decisions about what they think happened and maybe shift their feelings. That's so cool. It's really powerful. Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. I want to shift a little bit and talk a little more about your specific journey. You are writing another memoir, right?
Yes.
Called One Woman's Journey, it's called Good Spirits.
In Good Spirits.
And you describe it. Oh, In Good Spirits. Thank you. It's called In Good Spirits. And you describe it as one woman's journey from inner chaos to inner peace. Mm-hmm. Can you share a little bit about what that was, what that means for you? What was feeling chaotic, and how did you get to the inner peace?
Yeah. So getting married and having babies right away, which is what we wanted and how we planned it. And then somewhere along the way, my husband started to really develop an alcoholism addiction. And so it was very slow forming. And so for me, I hadn't grown up with anybody who had had any addictions before. There wasn't any in my family that I really knew of, or if they were, they weren't in front of me where I could see, or in my immediate family. So I didn't understand that at all. So, and with being a wife and a mom at home with 3 little ones, it can be very overwhelming for all of us. And so I think it formed into more of a habit for him, and kind of, I made excuses and kind of went, well, he's stressed at work and he's trying to provide for all of us and this kind of thing. And he was a functional alcoholic, so all of his responsibilities always were taken care of. He was still a really good dad. He was still present for the kids, and it just sort of slowly developed, which I kind of, in my book, I sort of relate it to that Febreze commercial where you go nose blind. You get so used to the status quo, and it happens so slowly that you don't realize until you have a real big step back. You don't realize what's in front of you. I remember thinking to myself, I would never have put up with this, or I would never have gone into a relationship like this if it was like this from the beginning. And where, you think about yourself and what did I do wrong? Where did we go wrong? Where did he go wrong? We're constantly kind of searching. And it got to a point where I kind of thought, like, well, is he bad enough? Like, is he a bad enough alcoholic? Like, he's still holding a job. He's not hurting any of us physically at all. It wasn't that. He was, providing for us. He would help me cook and clean. So it was very confusing. And also at one point I remember thinking, if he would just hit me, I would know he was an alcoholic. But that he just does not have that in him. He would never do that. And so I remember thinking that, though, because it felt like such a gray area. Like, is he bad enough? Am I just making this up in my mind? Am I seeing something that's not there?
Do you mind me asking you what the red flags were for you? If it was so gradual, like, what were you noticing?
Just noticing bottles around, noticing like hidden bottles and cups with alcohol in weird spots that were, in a cupboard in the laundry room. And I'd be like, why is that in there? That's strange. And is that normal? And maybe he was just throwing it there because whatever. And I'd have a glass of wine at supper or when he got home from work, and, we'd have a drink together. And then kind of slowly the drinks got darker, where, he would say, well, I just had one drink. I'm like, yeah, but that one drink isn't really like one drink. It's, a lot more alcohol than it was water or whatever the mixer was.
The ratio.
Yeah. So things like that kept happening. And then we started to kind of broach it a little bit. And because I didn't want to overwhelm him, or I didn't want to accuse him of something without, it was hard to pinpoint exactly, because he was still doing all the right things and he was still there for us and he was all of that. So for me to talk to him or like come up to him and be like, hey, I think you're an alcoholic, or I think you have a drinking problem. It was kind of like I felt like I didn't really have a lot of concrete proof, like exactly how much he was drinking or when or that kind of thing. So it happened really gradual over a number of years. And then it kind of just came up and we kind of would I'd try to help him, or he'd say, oh, I'm going to go off of, I'm not going to drink now, and that kind of thing. And then it would kind of come back. And so we kind of roller coastered it. And all the while, for me, it was, I'd be happy I'd be fulfilled. Everything would be fine if he stopped drinking. Everything would be perfect. Like, if he would just stop drinking, I would feel totally fine. I wouldn't be so passive aggressive. I wouldn't be so snarky. I wouldn't be so impatient. All the things, right? So for me, I always just, it was on him. It was on him. So then it kind of, we had a summer where we tried to really work on it together, and he quit his job because it was providing him a lot of stress. And I thought, well, we're okay for a few months. Why don't we just take the summer off as a family? Then we can work together. If we're busy and we're doing things together, this will help you. And then kind of at the end, I was just like, well, if this doesn't work, then you know what the next step is. And I said, it's going to be rehab if this doesn't work out, because these are the ideal conditions right now. So then it kind of, the summer came and went, and at first it was really good, and then it, kind of started to creep back, because it's, alcoholism is not, it's a brain condition. It affects the chemicals in your brain. So it's not just as easy as when it's that habitual and that instilled for a number of years. It's not that easy just to cold turkey, and also it's not safe to just cold turkey it either for a lot of people. So then one night, it was getting close to the fall, and the kids were starting school, and obviously I had caught him drinking again, or just smelt it on him, and at that point I was just super suspicious all the time, and so then he had gone, and he was kind of more in a depressive point at that stage, and so I had said, okay, to myself, like, this is it. I have to do something about this. I have to, he needs to go to rehab, and before he gets another job, and the kids are going back to school now, this is the perfect time. And I was trying to pump myself up. So I went down and talked to him and said, you're going to rehab. And he agreed. He nodded and realized, and he was, this was our rock bottom, where it was very heavy, and there was just, we tried our way to do it ourselves, and it just wasn't enough, and he just needed help. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's so many different things that we need help with. So I said, okay, I'm going to book you in. I'm going to take you in right away, and we're going to do this. And I'm just kind of in, mission mode at that point. And he was just, under the covers and probably just feeling extremely shameful at that point. And something I want to mention now, because I don't want people to get the wrong idea, is that you can't force somebody to go to rehab or to get help. Right. It sounds like I did, but if he wasn't ready, and if he didn't agree and choose to do that, then the rehab would never have worked at all. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of want to put that caveat in, that because for so many years I was, how can I fix my husband? How can I fix him? How can I fix him? Why can't I fix him? Somebody just give me the tools to fix my husband. And you can't fix another person. They have to choose for themselves to heal. So I just wanted to put that out there, that it wasn't me forcing it on. You can't make somebody do that. If it was just divine timing that it came to that point, and he was ready and I was ready. And so for me, the turning point, I was still in a mode of, it's him. If he gets clean and sober, I'm fine. He stops drinking, woo, I'm all good. And he went to rehab, and I was home alone while the kids were at school, and I was digging in a box, and I thought, okay, I'm going to purge the whole house. I just want to get out this excess heavy energy that's in here, aka any other bottles or anything that I find I need to get out before he comes back. That was my main goal at that point. I didn't want to be reminded of anything, because anytime I saw something, I would lose my mind. And so for me, it was a protection thing for me as well, and a control thing, because I was very micromanage control at that point. And so I was cleaning in the kids' toy room. I cranked the tunes, and I was in a good space, and I'm going to make the house. It's going to be awesome. He'll come back, and it'll be, everything will be organized and clean, and he won't have to worry about seeing anything, and it'll be all, a fresh start for all of us. And I'm going through this one box, and I find an empty Mickey in the box of liquor. And I flew into a rage, and nobody was around. And luckily it was a plastic Mickey. I whipped the bottle across the room, and it hit the wall, and I was sorting through toys at that point. So I was throwing toys, and I was screaming and kicking and punching the air. And I was just this rage just burst out of me. And then I kind of just collapsed on the floor and was taking these deep breaths. And all I could think of was what the hell was that? What in the hell? What just happened? I was so confused. I'm where did that come from? I didn't know I was so angry. I didn't realize that was inside of me. And then all of a sudden, just like this, and now I know it was one of my spirit guides, just kind of came to me and just went, bing, you're not the only one who needs to heal. And then I was and I got goosebumps as I said that this time. And I kind of sat back, and I just thought, holy shit. And I remember it was almost like a burst of energy. And I stood up, and I was like, holy crap. I need to heal. Oh my God, I need to heal. It was such a huge thing that it was so obvious, but not. Mm-hmm. From anybody who could have been looking from the outside, they'd be well, yeah, of course. But for me, it was no, not at all. I'm fine. I'm the queen of fine. Yeah. And then once my husband was able to talk to me again on the phone and email and stuff, and I said, I just realized I need to heal as much as you do. And he was yeah, I know. And I was what? Oh. He's no, we've been talking about this at rehab, and he's and I realized that in yourself. He's it's both of us. We both need to heal. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to work on my own healing, and I'm going to try and do it as best as I can. And I need you to give 110% while you're there and work on your healing. And I said, once we're at a certain point of our own journeys, then we come together and work on our marriage and each other as a couple. I said, I can't go there yet. And he said, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds like a great idea. And I said, so now's our time to be selfish and do whatever we need to do to heal our own wounds and our own selves, and do what we need to do for ourselves and our healing. We'll be doing it together once you get home, but we need to do it still individually. And then I said, at a certain point, then we can try and fall back in love again, and then we can work on each other, on our marriage. And I think I didn't realize how profound that was at the time when we were talking about it. But looking back, I realized that it was such a huge thing to do that separately before coming together. I think if we would have pushed too hard to come together too soon when we were still working wounded, then it would have not been as easy. And it wasn't, don't get me wrong, it wasn't easy, but wouldn't have flowed quite as gracefully, if that's the word, and naturally. I think it just organically, that's the word I was looking for, just kind of organically came to that. We didn't have to make a decision now we're going to work on us as a couple. It just kind of happened naturally when we were both at a certain point. And that for me was the start of my entire healing journey. And
wow.
I had to look at, okay, what triggers me, and where do I need to go, and what do I need to do? And for me, the only thing that came to mind at that point was, I want to be as selfish as I can this month, but at the same time, keeping my kids in a very safe, loving, warm place while Dad's away, because they knew what was going on. I talked to them about it. I wanted to be very open with them, because alcoholism is it's a genetic thing, right? And I want them to know, and that was another thing that I wanted them to know, that even as adults, we can struggle, We don't know everything. We can get into trouble, but it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to get it. And I really wanted them to learn that and to see that Daddy is getting help because he needs it, and it'll be better after, and we'll work together, and it's okay to get help. So that was a big thing I wanted to instill in them as well, and just make sure that they were okay and protected as well. But while the kids were at school every day, I was like, if I want to sleep all day, I will sleep all day. If I want to eat chocolate and chips all day, I will do that. If I want to watch movies all day, I will not feel guilty. I'm going to do whatever I feel like doing that day, and I don't care what it is. And then I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to give myself permission to do whatever I want this month. Like, while he's gone, this is my time. This is my start. And so then I thought, well, what else could I do? I thought, well, I think meditation would be good. So I'm going to make time to meditate every day. And I'm going to give myself the grace of saying, hey, I only made it a minute today, but that's okay. I still did it. Or sometimes, like, at certain times I went for like an hour because I just felt like I needed it because my mind was just so boggled down and overwhelmed, and emotions constantly coming up out of nowhere and releasing, and I would Google, I would say whatever I was feeling that day. If I was feeling angry or I was feeling sad or resentful, I'd be like, meditation for resentfulness in Google. And then what would come up, I'd be like, okay, I'll do that one.
Let me ask you real quick. I'm wondering if you've meditated prior to this, or if this is how you discovered it. And I'm really curious how that part of your spirituality really played into this part of your healing, and how you ended up transforming your business from photography into what you do now.
Yeah, I'd always kind of had an interest in all the spiritual fun stuff, and the cards and the crystals and all of that kind of stuff. All throughout my life, I'd kind of been interested in that. But I'd never really taken it any farther than the odd psychic visit with my sisters or the odd crystal shop.
Like a curiosity.
Yes, exactly.
Before.
Like, it just felt magical, or it felt special, or like secret. There was something that I just didn't know. So I kind of, dabbled in it a little bit. And then I had meditated here and there, just kind of experimentally before. But when I was young, my brother also, he had passed away of leukemia. And so once he had passed away, then my fear of death went away because he was so present. So I could feel his energy. He was sending us signs. He came to my mom in a dream. So there was a lot of that spiritual aspect coming up.
How old were you at that time?
I was 13 and he was 19. So I was the youngest of 4. So after that had happened, being terrified of death before he died, then realizing, like, wow, he's so present. I can feel him. I can sense him. I can see all the signs, that it really kind of obliterated that fear of death for me. I didn't want to die, but I wasn't terrified anymore. And so that really kickstarted, like, our family would talk a little bit more spiritually. We would kind of talk a little, because we never went to church. We never had faith in a traditional way. So we would talk more about those things, or signs that we saw, that kind of thing. So it kind of been sprinkled throughout my life. And then I had always wanted and had been attracted to Reiki, but I had signed up for a course before my husband started his healing. And then the class got canceled. And then I signed up for this different one, and then my kids got sick and I couldn't attend. And so it kept just not. And then after he got help, after I was working on my healing, and kind of the next summer, 2020, when we were all at home, I could actually go and do this stuff, and my husband was at home, and so I actually had the time. And so then I took all the Reiki courses, I took channeling courses, I took Akashic Records courses. It was just like, it was all coming in because it was so helpful for me. And it felt like, when I took the Akashic Records, I was like, I can work on my own healing myself. I don't need somebody else to do it for me. Like, this is amazing. And so then I got to a place where I felt really like I had come so far that I wanted to be able to help others. I was like, there's so many people who feel the same way that I do, and where I was and where I am now. And I never thought I could be where I was, like where I am now, like a year ago. And so then that kind of triggered the start of wanting to help others and wanting to start a spiritual business and work on energy healing and just learn and spread what I knew and what I found out myself trying to figure out my own healing journey.
Wow. Thank you for just connecting the dots of how that all kind of came together for you, especially with the personal story of how you kind of ended up in this place of also what sounds like divine timing of, okay, now there's like, who would have thought that all this space would come out of you not separating, but like having separate healing journeys and deciding to do that, and then him coming back, and then you being able to kind of pursue all of these things that you were wanting to do prior.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how, with all the modalities that you approached, was there, it kind of feels like they built on each other the way that you describe it, but was there one, maybe it was the Akashic Records, that you felt was really coming in to help you the most through this part of the journey?
Yeah, like I think the Reiki and what I've heard a lot of people say is that that's kind of the best start when you're starting out on a spiritual journey is take your Reiki courses, and it really opens you up. It really gets that ball rolling when people are starting to be attracted to Reiki and wanting to practice it, and then they take it. It's kind of like the spiritual starter to like really start to awaken and really push you on your journey. And so then after that, it was recommended to do these channeling courses so that you had that channeling ability before taking the Akashic Records. So it wasn't so difficult, and it was more natural, and you were used to it and practiced. So I really enjoyed those as well, and was really working on that. But my confidence wasn't necessarily there, or, you know, you are skeptical and you question yourself, and, you know, it's part of the process. And then with the Akashic Records, then once I could go into my own records and I could see where these root causes were from and where these fears and triggers were really hitting home for me and where they had come from, and just kind of learning how to sort of dive deep into myself to be like, hey, this really pissed me off. What am I feeling about that? And why is it pissing me off? Where is that actually coming from? Because chances are it's not coming from whatever the situation was. So learning kind of how to do that and to really explore that in myself really took it to a deeper level and really helped me to advance myself and my spirituality and that. And then I took some mentorships after that so I could really fine-tune my channeling and really fine-tune my energy healing work. And so they were, 6-month programs that I did each individually. And
wow.
And so I really got deep into that. So I really felt confident in being able to help somebody else, because I needed to get through that for myself, where I wasn't feeling confident in myself yet, to a place where I am now, where I feel really confident that I can help, or I really feel confident in the messages that are coming through and being able to relay those, being able to use my energy to clear blocks and find root causes for other people and help them on their own journey of healing as well. So that's what I do on my one-on-one sessions now, is I get their spirit guides come in and give messages, and that's kind of the kickoff. And so I relay the messages, and then that sort of just gets the ball rolling of where the session needs to go. Because for me, I don't really know where they're coming from when they first come to me. And then we hear the messages and I go, okay, well, this is what your guides are telling me we need to work on right now. And they usually always kind of say, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I feel right now. And it's like a good validation of where they're at. And then I do some energy healing work on them after that as well. And then they can ask questions about their guides and that kind of fun stuff at the end too, if they want. Like, everyone wants to know what the name of their spirit guide is and all of that kind of fun stuff. And then, and then I morphed into doing group healing, energy healings. So we, because it's kind of it's a weird thing. I understand that and I get that, because I thought it was weird at first too. So with the group energy healings, I decided to, anybody who has never done one with me, it will be free for your first time, just to kind of experience it, because it's hard to explain. And so my group energy healings is a group on Zoom, and I have a theme. This month's theme is going to be on finance. And so going through different beliefs and things related to finances, and I go into everyone's Akashic records and kind of clear those beliefs that just aren't serving them anymore, and will help them to move forward without so many blocks and stagnant energy in them. And it leaves, sometimes it can really get their ball rolling of really wanting to work on their spirituality and really wanting to dive deeper into their own healing. And sometimes it can just be a beautiful gift of you feel so calm and relaxed and have a great sleep after. And it just really lightens the load for that day. And so the first time is always free on those ones. And I advertise those on my Facebook group or Facebook page, Lindsay The Grateful.
I like that. Just to define a few things for those that maybe have never heard it or heard the word before but don't really know what it is. Let's define, two things. One, I'd love to know your version of channeling, like what you channel. And I know spirit guides because you mentioned that, but maybe telling us a little bit more about what your channeling is and maybe what spirit guides are. So people might not know what that's all about. And also Akashic records. But if there's a way to kind of simplify.
Yeah, I'll try to be concise. So I'll start with spirit guides. Spirit guides are guides, essentially. They are souls, so they have been on Earth before, so they kind of understand the ups and downs, feelings and emotions, the challenges. They get the human experience. They understand that. Angels and other spirits and things are beings. They could, so they're at a higher level. So they're more literal. They can't really relate quite as well to the ups and downs and emotions as a soul who has actually experienced Earth before. And yes, there are angels who have incarnated on Earth, but most of them haven't. We won't go into that.
Okay.
But your spirit guides, what I kind of essentially say is that there's lots of people call them their guardian angels, and that's what they feel like. So they're guides that are with you throughout your life, and they do change. So you can have anywhere from 2 to 6 or 7, anywhere in that range at any one given time. You will always have a primary one, and that one will also fluctuate and change as you grow. So I remember when I first started channeling, and when I say channeling, I mean hearing messages from my guides and asking them questions and receiving answers. And there's different ways that we can receive answers, but for me, it's hearing. So some people see, some people smell, some people just have an inner knowing, or they kind of just have a sense of it. They feel the energy. For me, I can hear the messages. So for me, when I channel, I hear the messages and feelings from the guides telling me certain messages for people, and I write them down. So when I channel, that's kind of what I'm doing. And I can do other people's spirit guides and my own, and I've channeled angels and different beings and things as well. But your spirit guides, so you could have one for finances if that's a big thing for you right now. You could have one for career. You could have one, when I was writing my book, I had a writing guide. There's a relationship guide. And so you have different ones depending on what is going on for your life at that time. You might have known them in this lifetime. Chances are you didn't know them in this time, but it is possible. Lots of times they're from past lives that you've had before, and they've come back to help you, and you've chosen most of them before you came back to Earth so that they could help you and guide you the best that they can for what lessons and things you wanted to learn in this lifetime. So they're the best guides for you. So they are very soft. They are very encouraging. They will never tell you that you're bad, or they'll never say you're not good enough, or they'll never say, oh, you're going to win $1 million tomorrow, or whatever. That's not the energy. They're quite quiet until you tune in and tap into that energy and really feel the love. Those other sorts of voices that we're hearing that are more critical and things, that can be our ego most of the time. So the more that you kind of tap into both, you can start to separate them a lot simpler and define and really feel the energy of, oh, okay, that's just my ego coming in. Or, no, that's actually my guide. Or, oh, actually, that I feel like that's my brother coming in. So that's spirit guides, essentially, and they do shift. So as you learn a lesson, if you come forth and you break through, then one will leave and another one will come in to help you with the next phase of your life. So they're transient in that way to help you.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and then Akashic
They're
Records,
kind of like muses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they can have their own personalities. They can be really funny. Some can be very stoic. Some can be rigid if that's kind of what you need at that time, or some can be just really joyful. Like I had a joy guide that was just like, you need to find more joy. You need to just have fun. And she was just like sparkly, and she was just fun, and she was like flitting all over the place all the time. And so that was so cool. Another guide just for fun and joy. So they can be big deals in your life, like for big events or things that are happening, or they can just be little ones. And then the Akashic Records, I say it's an energetic library. So it's basically all of the thoughts, emotions, feelings, actions, events that have happened in this lifetime and all of your previous lifetimes. And so there's a record of absolutely everything. And so when something comes up for you, I can go into the records and be like, okay, is there something that happened in a past lifetime that is triggering this for her at this point and is blocking her from moving forward? And then I can they usually show just kind of a snippet of a past life and give me the feeling of what has gone on as to what has happened. And then we can clear that. And then it won't feel like such a burden anymore. Like it won't feel like something that you have to keep doing or the way you keep repeating pattern. It's really good for pattern breaks and discovering those in order to release and let go of those kind of things. So
that makes sense.
Oh, and one thing I will say, because people always get worried about this, spirit guides and your Akashic Records will not show me anything that you wouldn't want me to know. So if there's something in your life that you're very ashamed of, or you did something bad, or you are worried about all your secrets coming out, your spirit guides know what you want to reveal and what you don't. So they will never reveal anything to me that you wouldn't be comfortable with me speaking about. So I won't see every deep, dark little secret that you've ever done in your life.
Oh my gosh, that's a great disclaimer, because so that people don't feel like they're showing up exposed.
Yeah, well, I know when I've gone to a psychic before, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to know every bad thing I've done. She can see it in me. And that's not the way it happens.
Right. It feels, in my experience with this type of energy, it's very white light, very light and fun, and it can get deep, of course, but it's whatever shifts that we're open to, right? Like the person showing up, receiving, whatever we open ourselves up to receive. What would you say to someone who's feeling still kind of unsure that this is quote unquote real?
Yeah. Every person, in my belief, on the planet has had some kind of experience like that, where there's some kind of synchronicity or coincidence that we can't quite explain, and there's some sort of spiritual experience that we've had. And a lot of times what is natural for us is just to look for reasons. Why was that? Or how could that have happened? Or the logic, looking for the logic behind it. And I think the best thing in my opinion to do, if you're having thinking, I don't know, it could just hocus pocus, or it's just that's what happens, is just take a second and kind of take a deep breath and breathe into the experience of what just transpired, and just ask yourself, well, what was that about? Is this something more than I'm seeing right now? Does this have a greater purpose? Am I just dreaming this up? And sometimes just taking a couple seconds just to pause and breathe into it and see if it really resonates inside. Does it really go into your inner knowing, into your gut feeling? No matter who you are, we've all talked about our gut instincts and our gut feelings. And so we all kind of have that is a spiritual experience. That is tapping into our intuition. And so maybe just breathing into that and just noticing and just saying, I wonder. Interesting. kind of just taking more of a curious approach to it instead of just dismissing it entirely. Maybe open up to that. And what tends to happen, even if we just open it up just a tiny hair and we just open ourselves up a little bit, then we're going to see more and more and more of those special, beautiful experiences happen. We all love when that happens. It connects us to something, or it just feels bigger, it feels magical, it feels cool, it feels interesting. So opening yourself up just a crack to be curious about it and see what happens from there. And just leave it at that. And it will, guaranteed, it will flow and flow, and there will be more of those things starting to happen. And it will really start to, I don't think you need proof. You just feel it in your bones. You feel it in your gut. You feel it in your soul, in your heart, in the goosebumps, in the little hairs. Your body will tell you. Your body is very smart, and the energy around you will let you know what really is happening, or that there is something magical. And why not open up to the magic? I
love that. If I was going to say that, if you didn't, so I love that you said that. Which I think, it does kind of enliven life and create a sense of magic. And I think also, as we become more curious, it then begs the question of our relationship with trust in ourselves, right? Like trusting that what we're feeling is solid, that we can trust our body, that we can trust our thoughts, that we can trust our feelings about things that occur. It's like the next step in noticing. So you notice these things, ask the questions, be open, be curious, and then the next step is maybe developing a relationship of trust with yourself in that as we develop that. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think trust in ourselves, when you say it and you don't really overthink it, you think, well, of course I trust myself. It's myself. I know myself. But then when you actually really step back and think, do I trust myself? Have my actions shown that I've trusted myself in the past? And most often, a lot of us would discover that we don't trust ourselves as much as we may have first thought. And so that goes into just having compassion for ourselves, empathy for ourselves, and really looking for that magic and wisdom inside of ourselves, and tapping into that knowledge in ourselves and starting that trusting process. Because if we can't trust ourselves, then what happens is we turn outward and we look outward for the answers. We look to others, we look for situations, we look for jobs, we look for houses, we look for everywhere. And then we go, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know. Why can I find this? And we're looking because we don't trust what is being shown inside of ourselves, and we're not looking inward. And we don't just take a few moments just to still and ask ourselves, ask our higher selves, ask our inner knowing, whatever you want to call it, our intuition, our gut feeling. It doesn't matter what you call it. Asking ourselves and our inner wisdom, really, because it's so easy to turn outward for answers. And I did that for a lot of years. I would always go to my sister and just say, tell me what to do. This, my son is doing this. What should I do? I wouldn't even look into what felt right for me. And then a few times what started to happen is that it didn't turn out the way I wanted when I took those answers, because they weren't right for me. They were right for her, or right for whoever I asked, or wherever I looked, instead of just asking what feels right to me, what would be best for me. And then the more we turn inward, and the more we just give ourselves a chance to trust, to surrender, to believe in what is coming from our own selves, then we can really, that trusting process really builds and builds quite quickly. And then that's where the confidence and the self-love really starts to happen, and we really start to exude that. And then people are noticing, wow, you've changed. Wow, you'll get comments on it that will surprise you, because it kind of happens when we don't even realize it. It may seem like a quick process to other people when we've been maybe working on it for a while, just quietly within ourselves. But it's a beautiful thing just to look inside and say, I don't need to ask somebody else what's best for me. What is best for me? And then just taking a moment to breathe into that and just ask and see what answers come up and feel what your body is telling you. Does it feel light and expansive and exciting? Then that's more towards a yes, a positive. If it feels constrictive and heavy and hard and burdensome, and you kind of feel yourself turning inward on yourself a little bit, then that's your body telling you, that doesn't feel right to us. Let's try something different.
Yeah, that's a really great way to start to understand what connecting with ourselves can feel like. I think like we kind of mentioned earlier, is just this idea of like dismissing a lot of that stuff and being like, well, I don't know why I have a stomach ache. I just do today. But then when you think about maybe, you've got a long list of to-dos and you're not super looking forward to those meetings, and you're having, if you start to connect the experiences you're having with the way you're feeling, your body does have a lot of knowledge for you that it's trying to share with you.
Absolutely.
And maybe there's little changes that we can make to alleviate some of that. And also the idea of ownership, really, when we start to ask ourselves first, suddenly we take ownership of our experiences and our life, ultimately, and the choices that we're making, rather than, for example, like you brought up your sister. I think we all do that, right? We all have moments like that, or maybe we do that often, or maybe there's a person in our life that we trust that we ask questions like that of. That's not bad. It's just understanding the difference between just taking it because they gave you the advice or considering it first, right? But doing that and then going, oh, well, that didn't work, and then blaming them, for example. Not that you did this, but like, I know we all do that at some point in our life. Like, well, that didn't work. Why did you give me that bad advice? It's like, and we all do it, but it's like when you can zoom out and look at it from another perspective and go, well, of course, like at the end of the day, you, the person taking that advice, gets to choose whether you take that advice and whether you think it applies to your situation and your life and this moment of time and space. So really, there's never anyone else to blame.
Exactly, yeah. And I think we tend to ask for help and just maybe blindly just do whatever they say, which is what I did because I trusted her. But then I would have a scapegoat if it didn't go right.
Right.
Then I had her to blame. I didn't have myself to blame. And then that goes back to just not trusting ourselves, where we don't feel maybe safe to even listen to ourselves. So we have to give ourselves slow chances. I say courage is a muscle that we can build. And those little acts of courage, those little acts of trust in our intuition and our gut feeling will build upon that trust and will help us to gain the confidence to really start listening more and to be brave enough to ask ourselves more often and follow the advice and wisdom that we have inside. We have generations and generations and many past lives within ourselves and our wisdom. It's been shown that intergenerational trauma can carry down from generations, and so can wisdom. So let's tap into what we know in ourselves and give ourselves a chance. So if you're thinking if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, oh my gosh, I have a big decision coming up and I don't know what to do, start with little things. Maybe don't just jump to the massive issue or choice or problem that you're having. Start to trust the little tiny things. What do I want to eat this morning? What would be better for me? Or should I go for a walk, or should I do yoga? Should I, how many glasses of water? And think in your head, have a little dial in your head, how many glasses of water? And just little things like that, where you just slowly make choices, or which one should I buy, this one or that? And then build upon that before just jumping into one of the big decisions, because then what may happen is if it doesn't go the way you expect and you just jumped in blindly without really having that relationship with yourself, it can do the opposite and maybe harm that, and then you'd be more worried about going back and trusting yourself again. So it's like a child. You wouldn't just throw them in the deep end of the pool. You dip your toe in and you splash around a little bit and, you know, maybe stand in the shallow end for a little while before you start to swim in the deep water. It's the same idea with your intuition and your inner knowing, and just slowly build upon that.
Yeah, don't traumatize yourself.
Yeah.
out of the process, right?
Yes, please don't.
That's a form of self-sabotage when we do things like that. So we all do that too at times in our lives, but it's something to be aware of and to be mindful of. And what you're describing does sound very mindful. Mm-hmm. It's taking it slow, looking at something that's in the moment that you can look at as a choice. Oftentimes we don't even look at those things as choices. We're just like, oh, this is just what I do every day. How did these habits become my life? I have no idea. And it's about slowing down, being mindful, and starting to look around and asking yourself where the choices are. And there's a lot more than we may realize, and starting small is really good advice. So thank you for sharing all of that. I think that's a beautiful pathway of how someone can get started and start reconnecting with their bodies, or just noticing it more, whatever part of the process someone might be in with this kind of thing. So by doing this work, the work that you're doing now, what is it that you most want for people? What do you want them to experience, or what do you just want for them as you do this kind of work?
I want them to really understand and be aware and curious of their own healing journeys. What does that look like for them? For years, I didn't think I needed to heal at all. I thought I was fine. I'm fine. I'm getting through the day. I'm fine. And being aware and curious and finding the fun and the magic again. Spirituality doesn't have to be just crystals and tarot cards, and you can be spiritual without doing any of the so-called spiritual paraphernalia that's out there. It's as easy as looking inward. So I would love people just to start to be curious. What is happening around me? What is happening inside me? What is my body telling me? What wisdom do I already have inside me? And really kind of steering to what is right for them, instead of looking for somebody to give them the answers, to looking for a guru or the magical book that's going to solve all their problems, or whatever it is. Instead of looking for the solutions outward, come inside. And there's so much magic and beauty inside of us, and so much knowing. And once we really get to know ourselves, we can be better parents, better friends, better coworkers, better citizens. And it's just a sense of calm. Going from anxiety, which I didn't think I had anxiety. I was like, I'm confident. I've always been confident. And then going from that to understanding what calm actually is, and not having that daily anxious worry about even having to call to make an appointment somewhere would just give me a little, I would still do it, but it would be uncomfortable. Those tiny little things, when they're gone, then we really realize, wow, I didn't realize at what a high level I was just living on an anxious frequency for so long. And just that calm and peace of just being comfortable in ourselves and comfortable in the world, and feeling some joy and magic and curiosity about life, and seeing the beauty when we go for a walk. Wow, look at those clouds. Wow, look at those rocks. Oh, there's a heart-shaped leaf. There's little things like that, taking beauty in that. And it's really just about our own inner healing journeys and our own acknowledgement of ourselves and getting to know ourselves. And then that extends outward to all of humanity and our energetic beings around us.
Wow. It does feel very practical when you share it that way, that it's really about getting to know ourselves, like starting there and just being curious about, whatever we want to start with, but small.
Yes, exactly. We all want the one thing, Just give me that one pill and it'll, make all my problems go away. Give me that one book and I'll read it and it'll just change everything. But the wisdom is inside, and we already have all the answers. We just have to tune into them and into ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's what spirituality is to me. I love all the crystals. I love all the incense and the cards and all of the fun stuff too. But the essence of spirituality is just looking inward, realizing the magic and spirit that's all around us, and the connectedness that we can feel to something bigger than ourselves is truly what the essence of spirituality is to me. And that's why I want to normalize it, because it doesn't have to be woo-woo crazy. And I have these woo-woo Wednesdays, I call them, and I do Facebook Lives about different, topics that I want to talk about. But it's sort of being cheeky, because woo-woo can mean a lot of things to different people, but it's just sort of fun. And I think it's just really about getting to know ourselves and finding out what works for us. Take the tools that resonate, leave the ones that don't. Easy as that. It's a fun place to go with life from a place of just curiosity and awareness. Be aware that you're being curious, and be curious about being aware, and go from there.
That's a good one. Yeah, we should put that on a wall somewhere or
right?
something. I might do that. That's a good one. I think, that's one of my takeaways, I think. And then being curious, of course. I love that. It really opens things up in so many levels when we can approach things from a place of curiosity and do what feels good, or find what feels good, or see what feels good. Like, leading from that place is one of my takeaways too. Is there anything that you want people to understand about this conversation today?
Just that we all have our own paths to healing, to love, to connectedness, to spirituality. All of spirituality is fluid. There's no right way, there's no wrong way, there's just your way. And whatever feels good to you, that's your sense of spirituality. If that's going to church, awesome. If that gives you a good feeling and you love it and you have a great community, I'm super happy for you. I love that. If that doesn't feel right for you, that doesn't resonate with you, and you love all the crystals and the incense and all of that, then great. If your sense of spirituality is just being out in nature and sitting outside, going for a walk, fishing, whatever it is, whatever that is for you, we all have our own path to spirituality, and it's just finding our own paths. And there is no one way that's right for everyone. Just find your way and don't apologize for it. Just, if it resonates for you, just do it. Be like Nike, just do it. There's a reason that slogan has been so good, because it's true. Just do it. Just go for it. Why not? Do your thing. Do what feels right for you. And don't try and follow a path. Just follow your path, because somebody else's path is not yours. And it's not going to feel right eventually either. So just make your own.
You can truly be bold and begin your path.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
It's what this show is about. It's about being, finding the courage and being bold and doing it anyway, and trusting yourself that you can start whatever that looks like to you. And so I love that you shared it that way, because to me that resonates, because it's what I do all of this for, is to kind of come to that kind of message wherever and whenever we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I could ask another hour's worth of questions.
And I can talk.
But I won't. I have so many more, but maybe we'll just have to have you on for part 2. But
exactly.
I'll have to close and ask you just what you're working on now and how we can connect with you.
Yeah, so you can connect with me. Facebook, I'm the most active. I post on my page and do the Spirit Speaks and all of that. Lindsay The Grateful. My Instagram is of the same name. Events and things are mostly posted on my Facebook. My website is lindsayreiling.com, and that's a REI, Reiling. And I'm not as great about updating that. I'm the best at Facebook, so if you really want to know what's the best and the easiest, is my Facebook page. I do group healings every month, and one-on-one sessions are ongoing. We just find a time that works, and it can be Zoom or in person, doesn't matter. And then I have probably when this airs, it'll probably be over, but I'm sure I'll do another one, is connecting with spirit, learning how to create a spiritual relationship with your loved ones who have passed. So learning how to ask for, receive signs, and how to connect with your loved ones who have passed on and create a spiritual relationship with them going forward.
Oh my gosh, so much wonderful things. Thank you for sharing your story and all of the things that you've learned and where you're at now. And there's just so many wonderful, grateful things.
Oh,
so thank you, Lindsay. Thanks for joining me.
Of course, thanks for having me. This is really fun. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to People Begin. We hope that these episodes are helping inspire and empower you to take your next steps towards whatever you're thinking of creating. And if you want more tools, resources, and techniques for your creative process and to connect with me directly, then I'd love to invite you to our Unleash Creative community. Just follow the link in the show notes and I'll look forward to meeting you there. Happy creating.